Previously, to the shock of everyone, including Sean, she was able to resurrect Theron, one of the fallen crew members. She felt her luck shift a little after bringing him back, and she got the impression that luck might not be on her side for at least a little while, as a bit of a warning not to press it too far. To misquote a famous bard, you've got to know when to hold 'em and know when to fold 'em. Also, Theron may have declared that he would follow House Valenta from that point on as soon as he realized just what Sean had done for him. That happened too. When the ship was about an hour away from Port Freehaven, Keelan brought it back up to the surface so that they wouldn't risk hitting any ships when they surfaced. As they came close to the port, Keelan noticed that the arcane tidal bore was there. Vitalia announced that she was going to stay on the group ship to guard it, mainly because she'd be tempted to sneak on board the other ship and do things that would get everyone in trouble otherwise. In retrospect, none of the group actually insight checked that statement though, so who knows if she stayed out of trouble. The group arrived at the port without issue, and the flag of Leviathan that they'd been given when they were leading the smaller fleet up the river for the attack came in handy. They were given a relatively warm welcome, although an assistant dockmaster at the docks did ask if they had proof that they'd gotten the flag through legitimate means. Sean showed him the letter that Liam Saltborn had given her that had the Saltborn Queen seal on it, careful not to let him see the actual content of the letter. Sean noticed as they arrived on the docks that the street urchins of the city had clearly noticed the group's arrival and were spreading the word. She quietly let the others know that their presence hadn't gone unnoticed. The group made plans to split up. Keelan and Thalrizian headed to the Wayward Cartographer Society so that Keelan could turn in his rubbing of the Waystone and Thalrizian could get more information about other locations of underwater ones. Sean, Taria, and Tornak headed to the Wyvern's Claw to check the job board and let Taria see if there was a package waiting for her. Oz wanted to go shopping. They made plans to meet at Ned's Porthole, a tavern that Oz was familiar with. The Wayward Cartographer Society was very impressed with Keelan and offered him a future job running a cartographic hall. Thalrizian talked with them for a bit and got the impression that while they were technically neutral, the society as a whole was generally hoping for magic to stop being illegal. Once they were finished up, Keelan headed off to find an alchemy shop. He certainly found one that led him to realize that this whole money thing actually had some perks. Let's leave it at that. At the Wyvern's Claw, Taria went to pick up some platinum ore that she'd arranged to have delivered there for her to use to make armor. They also wanted to check the job board, but they were told that it was in the process of being refreshed and to check back that evening. It was definitely not because the DM forgot that the group would 100% ask to see the job board the moment the ship arrived in port. Taria then went off on her own to shop for some ink and other supplies. Sean and Tornak headed to Ned's Porthole to get a table and some drinks. It didn't take long for Taria to find a tattoo parlor that sold the type of ink that she needed. She also had a very interesting conversation with the tattoo artist there regarding magic and magical tattoos. She then took the long way to Ned's Porthole so that she could try to catch a glimpse of her father or grandmother on the way, but she didn't see them. Meanwhile, Oz headed back to the dock to talk to the assistant dockmaster. He had recognized the man, although he hadn't been recognized, since presumably he hadn't looked quite the same the last time he'd been there. He got some information about several ships he was familiar with, as well as some old friends. Once he was done, Oz tried to go shopping for some cooking supplies and some fancy wine, but he didn't have much luck. At Ned's Porthole, Sean and Tornak arrived first and saw that it was surprisingly packed. They quickly realized that the crew of the Arcane Tidal Bore was there. They were trying to find people to join them, and they were bad-mouthing the Empire and the Praetors while talking up Thalacros. They were trying to get people to meet them at the docks the next day. Sean and Tornak got a bottle of cheap rum before waiting outside for the others to arrive. They were approached by a high-ranking member of the crew who was very insistent that Tornak smoke from his pipe. Tornak ended up using a subtle casting of prestidigitation to make it look like he took a puff from the pipe without actually doing so. Once Keelan, Taria, and Thalrizian got to the tavern, they quickly agreed that they should spend the night at the Wyvern's Claw instead of at Ned's Porthole as planned. The three of them went to get rooms while Sean and Tornak waited for Oz to arrive. When Oz arrived, he was disappointed to see that the others had left. He seemed to understand when he saw the crowd inside, though. Before leaving, Oz went to get a drink because it was tradition. While he was waiting at the bar, he recognized a woman who was talking to Kalroth, the captain of the Arcane Tidal Bore. Oz also picked up on the fact that there was clearly some type of magic happening that was affecting people's minds, and Kalroth seemed to be focusing on the more skilled people in the tavern. Eventually, the tavern cleared out, and Oz left. He watched Kalroth and the woman he'd recognized go walking off towards the docks. When Sean asked if there was a problem, he told her that he was curious about what they would be telling people the next day, and he thought that he would go. They decided that they would head to the Wyvern's Claw to meet up with the others, and they could discuss what the plan was there. And that is where we left off.